What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome in to the channel. As you guys can see, I've got a special guest with me today. We have got Jake from Raise the Trident, popular Mariners YouTuber and Twitter account that has done a ton for the Mariners content creator space. So with this offseason being a little bit slower, as I'm sure you all know, as we have talked about as much as we can about the Donovan Solano and Jorge Polanco signings. It can only take us so far. I figured this would be a good time to bring Jake on and get to know him a little bit better, as he has recently, if you guys haven't yet, head over his channel, check it out, hit subscribe on it. Also, he has just had memberships open up, so think about becoming a channel member on his channel as well. And something that he's done recently is had a lot of content creators on. He's had Ty Dane Gonzalez from Locked On Mariners, along with Colby Patnode, Nathan Bishop, and the famous Mariner Mojos, Joe and Colton as well. And just been tremendous interviews. I highly suggest everybody head over there, check them out. So I figured, why not have Jake on my channel and let's get to know him a little bit better and talk to him about some of his Mariner fandoms, some of his favorite baseball moments, some of his favorite Mariner moments, and we can all get to know him a little bit better. But Jake, how you doing today? Thanks for coming on, man.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Very generous on the intro, calling me a popular YouTuber. I appreciate that. I don't know if I'd agree, but hey, I'll take it. But yeah, I appreciate it. It's nice to see Jay making content again, because the baseball season's in full swing. I mean, we haven't had a whole lot to talk about for the off-season moves or anything. So I've seen you post a couple videos about like re-signing Jorge Polanco and signing Donovan Solano, and a couple podcasts with Sir a couple times as well. But yeah, it's nice that we're going to be getting those game recaps soon, so that's super hype. I'm looking forward to that for another season, another 162.
Yep.
That's going to be fun, and hopefully more. We'll see. So yeah, let's hope. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love that you talked about in those interviews with other people that there's only so much baseball we can talk about with this team. And, I'm sure people listening can only hear so much about Donovan Solano, Jorge Polanco. Oh, were they going to sign Bregman? Were they going to sign Alonso? All that stuff. So I think I can kind of speak for most people. I'm just ready for baseball. I'm ready for actual games to start. So this would be a good time to kind of get to know some of, the content creators that are out there. And, before we get into the questions with you, I really did want to praise those videos you had. And again, for anybody watching, head over to Jake's channel, check it out. Those interviews, really getting to know some of these people better. I obviously know, I know Ty a little bit, not great, but we've, he's been on the show. I've talked to him a little bit on Twitter. No, he's a great guy, obviously. And Mariners Mojo, Joe and Colton have to be two of the nicest guys in the community as a whole. But I really especially enjoyed the interviews you did with Colby and Nathan Bishop, because I think, you talked about it when you interviewed them, maybe I don't want to say reputation, but the perception of them is a little bit different than the reality. And getting to hear them interviewed and talk about their fandom, I thought was really refreshing, to be honest. And it was great to hear them talk about it and kind of hear everybody come to the same conclusions about this team and about being a Mariners fan. So just want to applaud you on that, because I really, really enjoyed those interviews. They were a ton of fun and made my workday go faster because I listened to them at work. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I really liked those interviews as well. I was approaching it a lot from my own, I guess, former feelings about them in particular. Both of them, I've said it in both of the interviews, felt like they're pretty polarizing figures. People either really like them or really don't like them, like seriously. So, I thought that it would be interesting to kind of have more of a long form discussion, because on social media, on Twitter, like, we have character limits, you can't see tone, you can't see emotion, and I think losing that nonverbal communication really changes how these ideas that are portrayed are presented and how they can be received. So when you don't have that nonverbal communication, like, I'll see a Colby Game Day tweet, which is, infamous at this point, and I'll be like, wow, this dude is like really angry, or he's very negative. Same thing with, Nathan, in talking about the team. Sometimes he can come off very cynical, and I think he knows that. And that was the whole point of the interview, was to kind of get more of kind of like a more I guess, fleshed out feeling about, where they stand when it comes to certain topics, or where they're coming from. And, once again, it runs back to my own perception of them initially. And I wanted to have them on to kind of just see the human outside behind them, which is weird to say because, I mean, we're talking about content creators, we're talking about Mariners commentary. I mean, it's not like we're getting into like political discussions or anything. Like, it's not that crazy. But people do take sports, communications and sports conversations really seriously. And I just thought it would be cool to have them on, and they were great. They both, I felt like, really showed who they were and what they're trying to get at when they're talking about the Mariners. And I think a lot of us, I think we all kind of agree on 95% of the topics when it comes to the Mariners. What we just have a different way of communicating to that, or a different way of coming to those conclusions where we might disagree on how we got there. But ultimately, we all kind of are in the same boat here, and we're all in the same boat. We're all Mariners fans. We all want the team to win. None of these people, if you think they're negative, they want the team to lose. They want this team to play October baseball, and it's just a matter of, we may disagree about how to do that and how to build the right roster and the right people to get. But it's just nice to have those, conversations, get more background on who they are, how they got to where they're at now, and get the kind of that context. So the next time you do see that tweet that's a little questionable, you have that context, and you can, kind of take it in the, I guess, more informed way. So it was really cool to have those conversations.
Yeah, definitely, and well said. Because social media, especially Twitter, it's like a text. You don't know what that person's meaning behind it. Can be taken the wrong way. A lot of times, I'm cynical just for my own. It just helps me. It makes it funny. The Mariners lose a brutal game, and if you can tweet something funny about, just like, hey, it's not that. I've had people get mad at me for Mariners lose in a hilarious way, and I just kind of go, well, time to go 161-1. Like, obviously it's not serious, but it's just meant to give it a little levity to the situation. And one thing that Colby said that I really liked on his interview was like, hey, if baseball's getting you to that point where you're just angry about it, step away for a couple days. It's supposed to be fun. And I think that was something that everybody you had on mentioned, that at the end of the day, this should be fun. It's baseball. Obviously, I don't want to say it's just baseball, because like you said, it can be, for a lot of people, can be their escape from something maybe in their life that is a struggle, or something like that. So I don't want to dismiss it, but it should be fun. It shouldn't be something that keeps us awake at night. It shouldn't be something that stresses us out. We should be enjoying what is a beautiful game. And regardless of how the Mariners performed, I think all four of your guests, or five, I guess if you include Mojo's two different people, echoed that. So it was just really refreshing to see the human side of, like you said, it's Mariners content creators. We're not saving the world or anything like that, but people that, I think there maybe are younger people, or people that are new to content creators that do look up to some of these people. So it is very refreshing to get to know them on a human level. So
Yep.
Next step here, let's get to know you a little bit better. Jake, take me through what brought you to the Seattle Mariners, because I know you're a bit of a newer fan to the Mariners. What got you into this team?
Yeah, well, I've been a baseball fan my whole life, so there's that, especially a lot before I was a Mariners fan, because of that is pretty recent. So I've always loved baseball, and I was just when I found the Mariners, which I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for almost my whole life. So, I mean, they are like the regional team for me. They're the only team or major league team that I can drive to and actually watch. It's a reasonable distance. So but I never really caught up with them, because I started out as a Giants fan, because my whole family is from the Bay Area. So it was like my dad's team was the Giants, so it made sense for me to follow those footsteps and be a Giants fan, especially in the early to mid 2010s, when they were on that run and they were kind of like a dynasty at that point. Was some of my fondest memories watching baseball, which we can get into if you would like. But when it comes to the Mariners, I've always been a guy who really likes having a creative outlet. That's for part of my life that was music, which I wasn't like a producer or anything. I liked DJing music. I'm into electronic, like EDM music and stuff. So I like make DJ mixes in my garage with my friend, like all summer type thing. So wanted to have that little dream when I was a teenager. And then obviously I was like, well, probably not the best dream to have, but whatever. So I was at a point in my life where I just needed another creative outlet. And I hadn't been watching baseball for a while. I kind of stopped around 2015, 2016. And that was right around the time when I stopped playing baseball, which kind of makes sense because I kind of lost a little bit of a love for it at that point. And I was just at a point where I need a creative outlet. I loved baseball. It's always been the sport for me. I've never been a football, basketball guy. Like, I'll watch it. That's fine. I've never been to a point of like following it or keeping track of players and stats and how teams are doing or anything. And I was on Twitter one night and I saw the Twitter reaction to Cal Raleigh's Rainmaker when he, sent the Mariners to the playoffs for the first time in 21 years. And it was that moment where seeing just kind of the Twitter reaction and seeing how much it meant to Mariner fans as a guy who at that point was kind of not in the best place in mentally at the point and needed that outlet. I was like, hey, the team like a few hours from me is like exciting. Like, they are really exciting right now and people are excited for them. And I saw how much it meant and I was like, yeah, let me check this out. And so I watched, get wild card game 1s and 2. And of course, game 2, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty hooked now on this team. This is, pretty cool. And it's just like cool to have a team that is been your technically hometown team for most of your life. To be doing well. And, some people could call me I've been called a bandwagon once before, and I'm just like, that's kind of crazy because I've never been to the World Series. So that's a little nuts. But yeah, I guess if you want to call me that, then fine. But yeah, I just was like, this team is exciting. I want to get more into it. I started watching Locked On specifically around that time. Then that's really what I guess gave me like the context of the organization and what was going on, and it helped me learn about the players that I was seeing on my screen, what their deal was, what's going on with the organization as a whole. And yeah, and I had been to like Mariner games previously, just never like as like a Mariners fan. I just went because I love baseball, and it was like I either got invited or we just took a willy-nilly trip up, whatever. And yeah, so it was like, this all makes sense. It was like a perfect recipe for me to like kind of dive into it. And yeah, I think it's pretty clear I've dived pretty far into it at this point. And yeah, I'll definitely be, I think, a fan for life, regardless of how they do, pretty much.
Love it, and it goes to show that each moment of baseball can bring in new fans and
Yep.
new groups of people. And to the bandwagon thing, to anybody thinking that, we're all bandwagon fans because there's all a moment that hooked us or a player that hooked us in. So we're all a bandwagon fan to an extent. Like, all of us hop on at a certain point. So there's no like, oh my gosh, you can't. I don't give style points to people that have watched for longer. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're all fans of the team and we all want them to win. So
Yeah.
and I do like that, after you started following the team, that the playoff series, they lose the first 3 games. So nice introduction to the Mariners.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the full range of emotions for sure. But like, just to expand on your point, like it's the moments that can make fans. Like, I talk to a lot of people. I mean, I've had a lot of interviews. A lot of times people point to the double in 95 as like what hooked them. So yeah, it really is like the moments, the good moments that hook people. Obviously, losing 104 games isn't going to bring in new fans. So yeah, it's got to be kind of the good moments, and Cal Raleigh's was mine. So.
And even, and there are people that do start following a team when they're losing. Even that is kind of a bandwagon, because you might go, hey, I really like the farm system. I know people, I have a buddy that would pick, when he got into hockey, he picked the worst team in the league to follow, and then kind of built up through that because he got into like, okay, who are they drafting? So there's all different ways that something hooks you. But yeah, the double, the home run, that there's a moment that brings us in. Nathan talked about that in your show, how many people that were there in 95 didn't even know anything about baseball, but it brought them together. And I really felt that when Cal hit that home run. Just everybody, it wasn't about complaining about ownership or Jerry in the moment. And those complaints are more than justified. But in that moment, It was about rooting for the team. Now, you did mention a few baseball moments. I am curious, being a Giants fan growing
Mhm.
up, or with your dad, because I actually went to high school and junior high in the Bay Area. So a
Oh,
lot of
nice.
Giants and A's baseball in my life. And take me through a little of that, because a fascinating team, Barry Bonds, that history. What were some of those moments?
Yeah.
And a beautiful stadium, too, in San
Oh, yeah.
Francisco as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that certainly helps. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oracle Park is probably always gonna be my number one park. I love T-Mobile. I have nothing against T-Mobile. It's a beautiful park. Oracle is the best in the game, in my opinion, and it's never going to be topped, probably. But yeah, my first like conscious baseball moment is actually when Barry Bonds hit his 756th home run, because that was the first time that I saw my dad like cry at watching sports. And so that was like the first thing that like signified to me how like emotional and how important sports can be for people. So that was like my first conscious moment. Now, as far as like when they were a dynasty in 2010, 2012, 2014, when they won the World Series, that was when I was like really deep into baseball. I remember I was a kid. I mean, I'm a kid at that point. In 2010, I think I'm in middle school, and I remember in like, a lot of kids will turn on like cartoons or kid shows when they wake up to go before they go to school. I'm turning on Hot Stove on MLB Network, and I'm watching that thing. I'm watching Intentional Talk after
Yep. Yep.
school. I was really deep into it. It also helped that, I mean, there was some other, like, that was when Verlander was coming up and Scherzer and stuff. So I that also helped like my love for pitching, especially. But when it comes back to the Giants, yeah, just watching them win in 2010, they had Tim Lincecum, they had Buster Posey. You're like, these dudes are. Especially Lincecum, being from Washington, being this really short dude, and with one of the more unique deliveries ever for pitching. I was hooked. I was a big Lincecum fan to start out with. And then, yeah, just watching that whole run was just insane. I mean, it was awesome to see three straight, like, or well, not three straight, but three World Series wins in that time. But I will say that when it comes to Giants moments, and it's probably one of the more underrated ones, like my favorite Giants moment when I was watching of all time is going to be Travis Ishikawa's walk-off home run against the Cardinals to send them to the World Series, and I believe it was 2012, because Ishikawa was a guy who probably shouldn't have even been playing pro baseball at the time. He had like a very interesting backstory where like he was kind of out of the game and got
Yeah.
injured, I think, or something, and he kind of came back as like a bench piece, and he was a bench piece at that time, basically. And he has this huge moment of hitting a walk-off home run at home at Oracle Park. So obviously the crowd's going nuts. To send them to the World Series, like, it was such a cool moment. And seeing him run around the bases, like, just going absolutely nuts, because obviously, like, who would have thought him hitting that, was just an awesome moment. I do like once or twice a year. I have to go back and watch that on YouTube and just kind of get those chills again, because
Yeah.
yeah, I just remember going crazy. And especially 2012 was such a fun year, because I think that's the year we had Marco Scutaro at second base, and he had kind of like a big bounce back year for the Giants, and we, clinched going to the World Series. And I think during the World Series, I remember there's like a day where at Oracle Park it was raining, and it was like, Marco Scutaro kind of was like at second base, just like they were winning the World Series basically, and he's just like embracing the rain. It was just such a cool, I guess, just time to watch baseball, especially at such a formative age as I was at in middle school, early high school time. And at the time too, I was still playing baseball. And so that was, great. And now it's right around the time I started playing baseball, like all year round too. So yeah, it really just kind of cemented the love for baseball. Like, this is the sport that like is always going to be it for me. So yeah, I feel bad like going into that, just because like I'm talking to Mariners fans here who've never been to a World Series, and I feel horrible about that. And I've like watched my team win it 3 times technically. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where when the Mariners do eventually win the World Series, it will happen someday. It's going to be a super sweet moment. So I'm excited for that.
And what I love about that Ishikawa home run, I remember that I was actually, I think we were in Disneyland when it happened.
Mhm.
Baseball's the only sport where a guy like Travis Ishikawa can do that. In
Yeah.
football, like you can determine who gets the ball. I know there's moments where a quarterback throws it up, it's tipped, random guy catches it. But
Mhm.
the Mariners could get sent to the World Series this year by like,
Donovan
Spencer,
Solano.
Donovan Solano, Spencer Packard could be up and hit a walk-off home run to send us to the World Series. Like baseball has that magic that, and I'm
Mhm.
not saying other sports don't. Football can be incredible. The Seahawks win the Super Bowl is amazing, but baseball just has that. It could be anybody at any time.
Yep.
And I think the Giants were really the perfect example of that at the time. Before we get to my next question, I do have to say that the interviews did make me feel old as well when you were talking to some of these people, because Ty was talking about being born when Paul Sorrento homered. I remember Paul Sorrento. And then
Yeah.
you're talking about middle school. I was actually a freshman in high school. I was at a football game, and they announced on the PA, because I was in the Bay Area, that Bonds had hit number 70 or 73 or 71. He had
Yeah.
broken the McGuire's record. So it
Yeah.
makes me feel old to know I was in high school in that time. But
Well, yeah,
no,
and
yeah,
just a quick parallel I'll also
yeah.
draw from the Giants to now for the Mariners is at the time, I mean, the Giants ballpark is known for being a pitcher's ballpark too, and the Giants had like good rotations at the time. We're talking Madison Bumgarner in his prime. We're talking Tim Lincecum. We're talking, Barry Zito towards the end of his career when he was still like pretty good. Matt Cain is like super underrated. He's going to be just had the perfect game. Obviously, I wasn't watching live at the time, but like, it's just they had those like good pitching was like the biggest thing for them for the Giants. Also helped probably solidify why I'm such a pitcher's guy too, and why the Mariners make so much sense because obviously their pitching, at least in their rotation right now, is insane. So yeah, just a cool little other parallel too. I wasn't watching some offensive powerhouses next. I mean, we were having Hunter Pence be like one of our best offensive key pieces. So yeah, but they made it work. But yeah, I think that's a cool kind of like I guess circling back surreal moment that like I now support a team who's very much built similarly
Mhm.
with the Mariners. So
Bruce Bochy, former catcher, Dan
oh
Wilson,
yeah.
former catcher. And at the time, because a lot of my best friends are Giants fans, Brian
Mhm.
Sabian was not a popular GM at
Yeah.
all. If I'm not mistaken, he was kind of viewed as this old school. And you had Billy Bean across the bay, who was
Mhm.
all into the analytics and was, changing the standards. Brian Sabian's got 3 World Series rings now. So,
Yep.
I don't want to bring Jerry into all this, but, maybe a parallel of like, it can still happen. You can still win. So,
Yep.
tell me a little bit about. So take me through a little bit of your playing career, how you got started playing baseball, positions you played, and your style of play as a baseball player.
Yeah, I started playing baseball a little after I moved to the Pacific Northwest, so that was probably like second grade maybe that I started playing baseball. And obviously for the first few years, like you're not really doing anything like specific as far as positions or whatever. You're just kind of like it is what it is. Little kids playing baseball, but I eventually was kind of shoehorned into being first baseman, which I didn't want to be, but I was always like the tallest and biggest guy. So they're like, put your biggest target at first base, which was me, and I had no say in that. So I was like, I guess I'm a first baseman now. And yeah, I was fine as a first baseman. I always struggled with picking the ball out of the dirt. I was not good at that on throws. And I just never really figured it out even towards like kind of the end of my baseball career. But yeah, I wasn't like the best bat either per se. But part of that is just like one year I found it when I was like 15. For some reason, it just became like, it felt easy. And at the time I was playing all year round. I was going to clinics on the off season and just trying to learn as much as I can. So it was probably a lot of that, just like kind of the extra work I was putting in was paying off at that point. But yeah, when I was 15, I was playing on club ball and I hit like 480 batting average one
Right.
year. It was just like the ball just looked like a beach ball to me all year, which was cool to have that, to the point where like one game I got intentionally walked because they're like we were playing a double header against some team, and the first game I went like 4 for 4, and then I was already like 3 for 3, and so the last at bat they're like, we're walking this dude. So I was like, okay, that works for me. But yeah, I didn't really other than that, like my bat was just kind of fine. It was average. It wasn't anything special. And I never had like insane power either. Like I had balls that I hit really far for sure, but because everyone gets a hold of one at some point. But yeah, I just was kind of more known for like kind of like line drives and into the outfield and stuff. So yeah, but I wanted to pitch. That was like my big thing, and kind of my biggest, I guess, regret from when I was playing, is I didn't advocate for myself to pitch at the time. Partially because I was always on teams where like I was the only first baseman, so like it just wasn't even like an option for me to pitch, which was frustrating because I always wanted to. And my biggest quality when I was pitching was my control. I was kind of like a little George Kirby, or I guess like a big George Kirby, whatever. Yeah, I was like, I just threw strikes, and I could keep it in the zone. And, my pitch mix at the time was a 4-seam, 2-seam, circle change, and a curveball. And the curveball wasn't great because I was really bad at because with curveballs you need to kind of like snap it, and I just was never really like good at doing that. So I had like kind of like a loopy one, which it probably wasn't the best pitch. So that's why I was a lot more reliant on my 4-seam, 2-seam, and my circle change, because I didn't know until like a year ago that on circle change you're supposed to pronate it. I never did that. I just threw it like straight up. I didn't know that was a thing at the time, and I'm like 15. I mean, they're not really teaching like pronating yet.
Right.
But yeah, I always thought I would be like a really good reliever, and it wasn't towards the end of my career, if you want to call it that I was getting chances to pitch. But when I did, I felt like I was pretty good at it, especially because I could keep it in the zone, which at the time a lot of people couldn't. Control is not always the easiest thing, especially for kids kind of at that age to have. So yeah, I ended up stopping through my sophomore year because I kind of had like 2 seasons in a row of bad coaches and like politics kind of ruining it for me. And having a dad specifically like complain to the coach about their kid getting playing time over me at like, especially during high school for the varsity team. And I was leagues better than this dude, and I got sent down to JV to get more reps. Okay. Sure. I didn't agree with that at all. And I think everyone kind of saw through, like, I wasn't down there to get more reps, because it's like I'm also being told in the same breath that I'm like the future of this program. Then why am I not getting varsity reps? It makes no sense, but whatever. Like, I mean, it is what it is. So there's like that, and I had a couple other coaches that I just didn't kind of ruined like the fun of it. And when you lose the fun of it, especially at that young age, you're like, why am I wasting? I could be going and hanging out with friends right now. And at the time, I'm doing it all year round. So it's like, this is like what I'm doing all year round, even in the winter, even in the fall. And it just, I got over it. And so I stopped after my sophomore year. I kind of regret stopping it so early. I feel like I should have saw through my high school years out at least and see where that went. But it is what it is. And I stopped watching baseball for a while, but thankfully Cal Raleigh's homer got me back into it. And I've just always loved being at the ballpark. There's just nothing like it. So it's cool that I kind of have an excuse to go more often too. So yeah, that was my playing career.
Yeah, no, and it's always, there's so much politics, and when you get to the high school level in all sports, and it really is a shame. Were you right-handed are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm a righty. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were left-handed for some reason. I'm left-handed.
I wish that probably would have made me unique enough, maybe, but no, I was a righty. So
gotcha. Like I say, yeah. Then that pitching career, with the old adage is always, if you're left-handed, you can pitch. You'll never stop playing baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned going to the ballpark. Take me through your perfect day for, like, you're going to a baseball game, but take me through, is it an afternoon game? Is it a night game? What's your day like? Who are you bringing with you? What is that perfect day for you at an ML at T-Mobile? We'll go with T-Mobile.
Yeah, so at T-Mobile, I haven't really been to a whole lot of night games, so I guess I'm a little biased in that sense. So I guess if I were to go with like a day game, especially talking like late May, June when it's starting to get sunny and but it's not warm. I hate the heat, so I'm not talking like a 90-degree day. I'm talking like a 70, 75 degree day works for me. At least at T-Mobile, I mean, there's nothing better than the first base side. If you can get like 300 level row one on the first base side on a nice, day, the view is incredible. You get the skyline, it's fantastic. So I would say if it's a day game, that would be my pick. I will say though that a close second for where to sit, which kind of might be surprising, is last year I sat in left center in the bleachers right above the Mariners bullpen. Really enjoyed that view, especially from row one. It was cool because you could actually see it was like kind of close to a broadcast view, so you could see the movement of the pitches, which you lose when you're on like the first base or third base side. You don't really see the movement. You can see the vertical movement, but not the horizontal or anything. So it's cool to be able to see that, and being able to have the Mariners bullpen and them warming up right below you is cool as well. So that's like a second. But if it's a nice day, row one, 300 or third base side, uh, go for that for sure. As far as like before and after, it's kind of hard because a lot of the times I've went up have been like I guess day trips. So I'm driving a few hours up,
Yeah.
going to the game, and then driving back right after. But so I don't know if I've really established kind of like if time wasn't an issue, like what that would look like. Um, I've certainly got some recommendations on great places, but I will say, like, I went to this place called Flatstick Pub after one of the games I went to last year, which is like, it's a pub. It has like alcoholic adult beverages, and it also has like some really cool little like putt putt courses inside
Oh,
too.
cool.
So it just kind of like doubles as like an activity as well. So really enjoyed that in Seattle. I think I'm a big marine biology guy, so the aquarium is always going to be like a cool thing to check out, and the Seattle aquarium's pretty cool. And I'm really excited to check out the boardwalk this year or whatever. They like redid it all up in Seattle, so I'm excited to check that out. But so yeah, I mean, if you could like fit the aquarium like either before or
Yeah.
after, like that would be cool. And yeah, I guess just getting something good to eat before and after as well. I mean, it just like there, unfortunately, I would have recommended this place called Burbs Burgers that used to be right next to Lumen Field. So it's only a couple block walk from T-Mobile. Really cheap, nice smash burgers. Me and my dad went before a Raiders Seahawks game because my dad's a Raiders fan from the Bay Area. So when they were up in town, went to that. Really good. And unfortunately, it's not there anymore. So that's kind of a shame, but I would have recommended that. So I guess like perfect day, probably would go with my wife if I were to pick someone. I do want to. My son has been to one game before, but he was like 3, 4 years old, so it'd be cool to have him go again. And then my daughter hasn't been to one, so at some point wanna see how that goes. And yeah, it'd be cool to catch a game with all of them. And there's all the ballpark entertainment. The hot dogs from heaven would be very interesting with kids. But yeah, like the fireworks, it's just like it's a fun time. And I get people who don't want to go right now, but at the same time, like for me, it's a self-care thing. It helps me kind of have something fun to do. So
Couldn't agree more. And I'm the same way with my family wanting to go. And I think football is a little, I don't know. I don't like taking my kids to football games. I don't actually really like going to football games, to be honest. I like on my TV. Baseball is better at the ballpark. It just feels right when you're sitting.
Yeah.
When you're,
Well, speaking
yeah.
for football games, when I went to the Seahawks game, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't bring kids to that because it was like even between plays, it's just a constant loud drone of people. and especially the, the Seahawks are known for being loud, and yeah, it was unreal to like experience that in person, just how loud that crowd is, even when the plays aren't even happening. It's just a constant, just loud hum, like you could barely hear yourself think. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend for kids. I think baseball is a bit more of a relaxed sport, so yeah, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are you food drinks before or after the game? Or are you a ballpark food person?
Well, with the prices, probably
Yeah.
before and after now. I usually don't really get anything like to eat there. Like sometimes I go in being like, I want to try this certain thing. Like they have Moto Pizza there, and like I wanted to try it last time, so I did. But yeah, usually I'll just get like one adult beverage and then like a souvenir soda or something, so I can take home the cup, and that's it. But yeah, usually food before and after is just a bit more economically makes sense, but also yeah, I like watching. I'm paying attention to the game. I don't want to have to be like worried about nacho dip on my fingers or something. So yeah.
I'm the same way. We always, when we go to Diamondbacks games, we go to a couple places across the street,
Hmm.
eat, have some drinks there. Because I'm the same way. I don't have time to be putting my ketchup on and stuff while I'm trying to
Yeah.
focus with food on my lap. So no, I'm the exact same way. If you could pick which pitcher for the Mariners to go see at a game, your choice. It's a tough one because I don't think there's a wrong answer to any of these five. But
Yeah.
who are you going to see? Who's your favorite to go watch?
So, not my answer for favorite, but I will say out of the current rotation, the only one I haven't seen in person yet is Bryce Miller. I've seen all four of them in action, which has been cool. But I would say I'm a big Logan Gilbert guy. So I'm holding out hope that maybe he's the opening day starter because I will be at opening day. But it'll probably go to Castillo, but holding out hope and my fingers crossed. Logan is uh, fantastic to watch. I love his delivery and how kind of, I guess, kind of violent it is almost, it feels like, especially with the ending. He's always like that and all that. And I saw him pitch a couple years ago against the Royals, and that was the game where the Mariners hit like 7 home runs. So he didn't have to pitch hard, that's for sure, to maintain that lead, thankfully. But yeah, it was still just awesome to watch him at work, and he pitched well. So yeah, it'll always be Logan for me. I'll always be a Logan fan for sure.
I think I'm the same. I think Logan would be the guy I'd want to go see, but I'd be fine
Mhm.
with any one of them just to be at the ballpark. So for
Yeah.
anybody not just chiming in because it's not live, but we are here with Jake from Raise the Trident. His description to his channel will be in the link to his channel will be in the description down
I say
below.
that all the
Go
time
ahead
too. The
and
description is in the description.
the description's in the deck. I'm like, wait a minute. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give Jake a couple rapid fire questions here before we get on the way. Then I'll give him some final thoughts. First one, you have a great memorabilia collection behind you. What is your favorite piece of Mariners memorabilia? It doesn't have to be most
Um,
expensive, but sentimental works as well. What's your favorite?
that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, nothing here is crazy. Also, a few of these things aren't things that I like bought. My friends had one of their parents was like moving out of a place and had some like Mariners bobbleheads, and they're just like, hey, I know a guy who would like those, and so they gave them to me. So I have this like really cool Ken Griffey Jr. one, which he's one of my favorite players, and still has a Safeco field in the background. So it's a nice little bobblehead. So yeah, I like that one. I would say like, I don't know. I guess my favorite would probably be this ball here, which is at the ballpark. If you go to the game used kiosk, which is like, I don't know the section, like 138, something like that. It's kind of like behind home plate, practically on the first level concourse. There's these black bags where it's like 40-50 bucks, and it's either a game used ball or it's an autographed ball, but you don't know what it is until you open it up, and then they all have like these codes on them if you need to figure out like when it was used. So this one specifically that I got in those little black bags was used on July 21st, 2023. It was thrown by Bryce Miller twice, two pitches, ironically to Brandon Belt, who, I was talking about
There
the
you go.
Giants earlier, so that's cool. It was pitch one, I have it labeled here. Pitch one was a ball. It was a 93.6 mile an hour four seam fastball. And pitch two was a foul ball, a 92.9 mile an hour four seam fastball. And that's when it got discarded. But the reason I like it is because it's a foul ball. I wonder where the foul ball occurred. You can kind of see if it, you can see the bat mark right there. So that's why I like it, because I'm like, it's pretty obvious that it hit off his bat right there. It smeared some blue ink from the bat or whatever the decal was. So I think that's cool just because of the obvious mark on it. So it's not just like a blank ball that has nothing on it. You're like, oh, well, it was used for one pitch or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it just, the ironic side of it being Brandon Belt is like, that's cool. So yeah, I would say that's my favorite.
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to get one of those black bags when I go. I think that's really cool that they do that.
Yeah,
It's just kind of,
it's fun.
even if it's, yeah, that's awesome. Are you a keep score guy? Do you keep score for baseball games? Is that something you do or ever done?
So not like when I'm casually watching. However, I have been wanting, and I've kind of started and stopped it, where every game that I go to, in person, I want to write out a scorecard for it. I don't do it while I'm at the park, but I do it afterwards, because in Baseball Reference you can go look at like every single thing that happened. So you can copy it down basically. But that's a little project I've been working on, to just have it kind of as a little memory piece for games that I've been to.
Very cool. Yeah, you strike me as a keep score person. I don't know why. Just like I get the
It's
vibes that
fun.
you're so.
I've done it.
It is.
I've done it live at a Mariners game before. Just I don't do it now because I actually want to pay more attention. So
Yeah, I think it's great when you're at a game. Like when I go to Diamondbacks games, I do it because like I don't care that much who wins. So
yeah,
it's a lot more fun. When you're into the game, it's a little bit harder because you're like nervous during the game. So
yeah, for sure.
um, who do you think is the best former baseball player in the Mariners content creator community? I will already pull myself out because I played Little League and that was it. Who do you think has had the best career? You can throw yourself in there if you want to. I know Colby
No,
played
not me.
for a little bit. I don't know, unless there's someone I'm missing. I know Colby played a little bit. You played a little bit. Who would you put if you had to pick someone from the content creators community?
That's a good question. I think there's only a couple people who have even played college or above, which I know Ben Ranieri has. I did an interview with him when I was first starting my channel, which we touch on that a little bit. Hit a couple of home runs, so I asked him about his home runs. But so yeah, maybe Ben. But I also know I was just talking to Gavin from Up West Sports the other night, in just a general conversation, and he mentioned something about like pitching in Japan at one point. I'm not sure what the level was particularly, but that intrigues me because I'm like, that seems a bit more than like, because I think Ben was just it was a community college more or less. So and it wasn't after that. So I'm like, I mean, if you were pitching in Japan, that seems a bit higher than like community college. So maybe Gavin. I haven't really dived into like how good he was. It was kind of just I didn't really press into it more. So I guess maybe him, but I guess until I know more, maybe Ben. So we'll put it between those two.
All right, perfect. And then I do have to ask two more questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we do have to talk a little Mariners. I know we've tried to avoid this team at times. How are you
Yeah.
feeling about the upcoming season? You don't you don't have to go super in depth, but how are you feeling? Because I know for me, like the offseason is an F. Like it's hard not to give it an F for this team, but I'm also not like completely hopeless. It would not shock me if this team won the American League West. It wouldn't. I do think there is talent here. So I think it's kind of like two separate things. How are you feeling about them?
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of the more optimistic people in general in the Mariner space, so I'm going to keep with that and be optimistic that they obviously have a shot at making the playoffs, and I surely hope they do. Whether they do or not, I don't know, because they've missed out on it by one game 2 years in a row. So I think the last thing I want to do is be confident that that's going to happen, because it's going to bite me in the butt later. But yeah, I feel it's hard to assess the off season, because it's like, yeah, we had a lot of holes in the infield, which were just completely obvious. That yeah, they certainly didn't do enough, and didn't. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of budgetary restrictions that this front office gets, and whether it's a separate conversation about how effective they are and within those restrictions. But just the fact that there is a $14 million budget going into the offseason is absurd, because I've had people point out like it's a made up budget as like a reason why I shouldn't use it as a reason to talk about, like as like an as a nuanced piece of the discussion. And yes, it is absolutely like a manufactured budget by the ownership. It is. However, that doesn't make it like not in place. Like it is a thing that they have to abide by. So it matters in the discussions we have. So yeah, I mean, I wish this ownership would realize the place they're in, especially when you're taking in the context of all the other teams. The Astros are the weakest they've been in a long time. The Rangers are very iffy, and they kind of relied a bit. I mean, I get they won the World Series. I'm not going to put that, I'm not going to diminish that. But I mean, that year came with a lot of people having career years, right? Like they just had everything fall for them really good. Like really, like everything fell in line that year. And the A's are going to start catching up probably a little bit. They're not going to be, in contention for the division yet, but they're scary now. Like at least, you're not going to see the A's on the calendar and be like, oh, yep, easy 2 of 3. It's not anymore. And the Angels kind of the same thing. They're probably still like the weakest team in the division at this point, but I mean, we saw how we played against the Angels last year. I mean, let's not be like overconfident here about how we play against them. So I would say, to be more precise, I think we have a decent shot at hitting the wild card, because even though we didn't add a lot, that we need to take into account the pieces that we do have. We still have Julio, we still have Cal, we have Randy Arozarena for a whole year. We have Victor Robles, who is, he's going to be walking a fine line here of like, is he going to be good, or is he going to turn back to how he was with the Nationals? And that very much could happen. Obviously, he's not going to maintain a like 370 batting average this year. That's not going to happen. So it's just, what is he going to be is going to be interesting, because regardless of how he hits, like if he can get on base at a decent clip, I mean, we saw the havoc he can cause on the base pass. So that's going to be valuable to have. Obviously, our starting rotation is great, and we need to hope that they all stay healthy this year. And because, you never know when like that one big injury is going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen this year or ever, obviously never wishing for it. But that's something you have to take into account. And the bullpen, like, gotta hope Brash is Matt Brash when he comes back. There's the question marks there. Is Gregory Santos going to be who we thought we were trading for? And Munoz, he needs to still take kind of another step, especially, not having all those outings where he just seemingly can't find the plate, because that ultimately hurts him. He's so on or off with his command and control. So we still have some great pieces, regardless of how much we've added or not added this offseason. And once again, like, we only have lost out by a game each year. So this team is right there. And with a weaker Astros team and a Rangers team that's going to be very much going to have to hope that they're lucky on the injury front to be in contention, we have a good shot. I'm not going to be the guy who says we're going to make the playoffs, because that would be ill-advised after the last couple of years. But I'm excited to watch baseball, man. And they have some fun pieces that are going to be really fun to watch. And I'm excited. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed on all fronts, and I'm excited for baseball. So last question, not to go super deep philosophical on you on the last question, but one thing I liked, you talked about in your video with Mojo, I think you talked about with all of them, but kind of at the end, what makes this, I think, content creator community so unique is everybody kind of has a little bit of a niche. And I thought Joe and Colton hit the nail on the head. I kind of view you as a uniter of this community. You have really done a great job, bringing people together. And I've reached out to people that I wouldn't have, because you've kind of brought people together. So I'm like, oh, I can totally reach out to that person now, because Jake has kind of brought the community together. And I think that is a really inspiring thing that you've done doing that. Cause I don't know if any other fan base has that, to be honest. I don't know all the other content creators, but I think it's a lot of kind of people just doing it on their own in this community. We really have that. So for you with your channel, what's been your biggest inspiration to, whether it was to start it, whether it's to keep going, whether it's to have your platform be the way it is? Maybe it's an event, a person, or maybe it's just a self-inspiration. What's really inspired you the most to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's been a specific thing per se, but a lot of it spurs from before I started making content, but was trying to kind of get a foothold in the Mariners community on like specifically Twitter. Just all the tribalism that was there when it came to talking about the Mariners. I hated it and it made me feel terrible. And it's just one of those things that it genuinely just kind of affects your enjoyment of like talking about this team. And so when I started making content, that was kind of part of it, just kind of trying to combat that tribalism a bit. And for me too, it's kind of recognizing what my strengths and weaknesses are. Like, I am not going to be this super analytical dude who can talk about, you know, IVB and all these like really down in the depths stats that are just like for the total baseball nerds. And if you like that, that's great. I don't have the grasp on that. It's not a strength that I have. I'm not going to talk about the team in such an advanced way like you're going to get on Locked On, or some of your other more like kind of independent people like a Ben Ranieri or whoever. So it's just kind of realizing like my strength isn't really like, and like analyzing the team is not some big strength I have. But what I do have, and at least what I've found that I have, is being able to get different opinions together in the same place or in the same thing. I mean, I've had those State of the Unions where I've had 6 content creators at the same time going over specific questions about the Mariners and getting all those different opinions in the way that we look at the team. Because, like I mentioned earlier, like I think we all ultimately agree on 95% of the topics that we're talking about. We just have a different way of getting to that conclusion, or a different reasoning for coming to that conclusion. So that's pretty much it. It's just it's this is baseball, man. Like, it's entertainment, it's fun. Baseball is the best sport in the world, and instead of getting mad at people for disagreeing with you about baseball, let's have fun with baseball. Baseball's so cool, and I would much rather have my platform be about the positivity that baseball brings and why people find this gravitation to the sport or the team, and kind of examining that, because that's just who we are at a human level. Like, we love this sport for different reasons, and we've got into it for different reasons. And ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want success for the Mariners. We want to watch baseball. And yeah, that's why I guess I do what I do. And it's kind of weird because like people call me this like community builder guy, which I mean, I guess I am, but that's just kind of, I guess, my way at celebrating baseball, is to get people together and enjoy it. That's why I'm making these, fantasy baseball leagues with way too many people than I probably should have, but oh well, it's gone now. So I guess that's a little thing. Like, I have 20 creators, or 19 others, because one includes me, obviously, 19 other people in a like a double fantasy league that's going to be starting this year. And that's awesome. It's like, it's people who've never met each other. And I don't know if it was on the Mojo thing, or I talked a little bit about the Colby interview towards the end. It's just like, no one has, when I've asked to collab with people, no one's told me no for like a, hey, I don't want to talk to you type thing. It's always just been for scheduling, whatever, that's fine. But everyone has been so gracious with their time. You have your top dogs like, Ty and Colby, who are willing to come on and spend valuable time to come on my channel or come on other people's channels. Ty was my first interview, and I had like 20 subscribers, and he came on to my show and talked with me for 2 hours. And it's just like, that's the community that I'm hoping that we can continue. Is we're not in competition with each other. Like, this isn't a competition. We all have the same goal. We all love baseball. We want to celebrate baseball by talking about it. And yeah, it's there's no point in kind of being against each other. It's just it's way more rewarding when we're all winning, basically, is where it's at. So yeah, that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, well said. And I love the point about knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And I've always said, if you don't know, you don't know. It's okay. Like, there's amount. I get things all the time. I tell people, I don't know. That's a better question for a Ty and a Colby, or that's a better question for you. Or there might be people that, hey, that's a better question for Jay, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think you put us all together, and you've got a great community here. And like you said, it's not a competition. We all want the same thing, and it's great to see everybody really get along with it. So, and I think you've been a huge part of that, bringing people together. So I really appreciate all you've done for the community. And for anybody, I know you've talked about it, everybody else. Did anybody starting a channel? Like, don't hesitate to reach out. I think I'll speak for myself. Please do. I mean, my schedule's a little crazy. It's been hard for me this off season to do some things. But please do reach out if you're someone that wants to start a channel, and there's room for all in this community. So don't hesitate to do it. Any last words or thoughts about the team for the people watching? Anything you want to close us out with?
Yeah, I guess just if you are the kind of person or are of the opinion this year that you don't want to give this team money or spend time watching them, you're valid on feeling that way. If you are someone who can't wait for the season to start, that you're valid in feeling that way as well. Just don't, for me, it's just, it only becomes a problem when you're pushing that on someone else, when you're in the comments being like, oh, well, why did you buy tickets to go to the game? And are you giving John Stanton money? Sorry, brother. Like, I love going to games. That's why, and it's okay for me to do that. While it's okay for you to decide not to renew Fubo to watch the Mariners, like, that's do you, but something I would echo kind of what Colby said, is like, why would you deprive yourself of such a great game of baseball just because some owners are stingy and cheap? That's where I'm at. Baseball is the best sport in the world. I think it always will be. And there's nothing like it. And, I think just be along for the ride. And, eventually the team will get to that World Series. Eventually the team will get and win the World Series, and that will be a moment that we can all just celebrate. And I can't wait for that. And regardless of how long that takes, I'm ready for the journey. That however long it takes, I'm ready for the journey for that. So yeah.
May have to wheel us out to do it, but we will be here to celebrate it when it happens. No, well said, my friend, all the way around. Jake, really appreciate you coming on as always, and for your insights and for all you do for the community. I should have probably mentioned this at the beginning, but if you guys can like and hit subscribe to my channel as well, but also, like I said, go over to Raise the Trident. Link will be in the description down below. Sub up to his channel. Check out some of his membership stuff. I know he's got some cool stuff going on there. So, it'll be a fun season, even depending, no matter what the Mariners do. So thanks again for coming on, my friend. Always appreciate you. And I'm sure we'll see you on here again very shortly.
Hopefully. Yeah. Always willing to come on. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Take care, everybody. And as always, go Mariners.